This is so my god. Welcome back to our Q&A series. Today in episode 2, we'll be discussing our different print and frame sizes. First one we'll be covering today, our classic prints. Let's get started. To give you guys a rough idea on the sizes here, we'll be comparing the prints to an A4 paper as well as the Samsung Galaxy S7. We've also placed a ruler on the table. First up, our S8R. It's slightly longer than the A4 at 31 cm but falls short on the width. And here's how it compares against the S7. Next up, we've got our A4. It is exactly 21 by 30 cm and here's how it looks against the S7. Here is the 8R against the A4. It measures 8 by 10 inches and here it is against the S7. An 8S print measures exactly 8 by 8 inches against the A4 and against the S7. 6R is 8 by 6 inches. Here it is against the A4 paper and the S7. Now we have our 6S measuring 6 by 6 inches against the A4 against the S7. Our 5 by 7 5R print against the A4 against the S7. 4R prints are 4 by 6 inches against the A4 and up against the S7. Now even smaller, we have our 3R at 3 by 5 inches against the A4. Now against the S7. Lastly, we have our 2R, which is 2 by 4 inches. Here's how it looks against the A4 and the S7. Now we'll be showing you our larger print sizes. We have the 61 by 91 cm, 50 by 70 cm, 40 by 50, and lastly 30 by 40. For this, I'll be using my colleague to show you guys the scale. Here's the 61 by 91 cm print in portrait and in landscape. The size includes the white border you see around it. Now we have the 50 by 70 cm. Here's how it looks in portrait and now in landscape. This size also includes the white border around it. Next up, the 40 by 50 cm print in portrait and landscape. Lastly, we've got the 30 by 40 cm in portrait and also in landscape. Now with frames, this is how they look like. 61 by 91 in portrait against the Honda Civic. 61 by 91 in landscape against the Honda Civic.
50 by 70 in portrait against the Honda Civic. 50 by 70 in landscape against the Honda Civic. 40 by 50 in portrait against the Honda Civic. 40 by 50 in landscape against the Honda Civic. 30 by 40 in portrait against the Honda Civic. 30 by 40 in landscape against the Honda Civic. Now all lined up against the car.
We also offer prints in the size of A1, A2, and A3. Here's the A1 in portrait and in landscape. It measures exactly 59.4 by 84.1 cm. Moving on to the A2 in portrait and in landscape, measuring at 42 by 59.4 cm. Lastly, the A3 in portrait and landscape. It measures 29.7 by 42 cm. Here's how they look framed up. A1 portrait against the car. A1 landscape against the car.
A2 portrait against the car. A2 landscape against the car. A3 portrait against the car. A3 landscape against the car. All lined up against the car.
Moving on to our IKEA square prints. We'll also be adding in the 23 by 50 print in this segment. Here's the 50 by 50 cm. This minivan is printed on a 32 by 32. Moving on to the 30 by 30. Now we've got the 23 by 23. This skate parks on a 20 by 20. This small one is 13 by 13. And the smallest we've got is a 10 by 10. Lastly, we've got the 23 by 50 cm. Fun tip, this size is perfect for portraits of yourself. The last one we'll be covering today are our standard canvas sizes. 20 by 20 against the car. 20 by 30 in portrait against the car. In landscape against the car.
Our 30 by 40 in portrait against the car, in landscape against the car. Next up, the 40 by 60 in portrait against the car, in landscape against the car. The next biggest size is a 50 by 70 cm in portrait against the car, in landscape against the car. Here's the biggest standard size we have, the 60 by 90 cm in portrait against the car, in landscape against the car, lined up in front of each other, lined up next to each other.
Some of you here may want to display your canvases on an easel, say for your wedding. This one here is about 1.4 meters tall. Here's the 40 by 60 cm on the easel, the 50 by 70 on display, lastly the biggest 60 by 90. And here's how they compare against each other. And that wraps up this video. We hope we've given you enough perspective to estimate each size. Different print sizes answered. DM or email us if you have any other questions and we'll make a part 3. Till the next one, cheers!